This is an Eye on Annapolis bonus podcast.
Well, I don't often refuse a chance to come up to Mothers for lunch or dinner or anything, or even actually their brunches are really good. But today we are up at Mothers Peninsula Grille up in Arnold. And as promised on the Daily News Brief this morning, we're having lunch with George Young from DCMDVA Weather. Man, how you been?
Yeah, doing well. It's been a good summer so far and already in August. So it's almost time for the dreaded return to school.
It's all done. We wanted to follow up and talk a little bit about the weather and where we are and everything else. But first, I want to sit there and say that, we did do the look ahead a while ago, and that's really difficult. I understand that. I mean, you can't predict that far in advance. But I will have to say that you did not blow one forecast, and I've got my little tracker at home since the last time we talked. Now, I blew it a couple times where I put the wrong file in.
Yeah. Well,
people are going like, wait, yesterday was Tuesday.
Yeah.
Shut up and leave me
He'd say
alone.
the same thing. Sometimes it's still accurate easily in the summertime because it's just like sunny and 88 to 95. So it might have worked out.
It could, except that you start out, you do say what day of the week it is and everything else, but it's fun. But I mean, summer here has been, I guess the big story this summer has really been the smoke more than anything. I mean,
it sure has. Those fires in Canada just continue to burn, and if the wind blows the right way, then we get a little bit of the smoke comes down. And sometimes it's been really bad, I think, to the point where several measurements have been the worst ever in this region in terms of the air quality being bad. So that has been the story of the summer, because otherwise it was kind of hot in July, a couple of degrees above average, but it was below average May and June. So we really can't complain.
I would say other than last week, and we're recording this on the first couple days of August, but other than that last week of July, the summer really hasn't been that bad.
Not bad at all. Those were really some of the first days where certainly multiple days in a row where it was heat index of 100 to 110.
Well, I don't want to say that we are, but boy, I would hope that'd be nice if we were done with that 110 heat index thing before summer. But we're in August. We're going to get something.
It's probably wishful thinking, but it's low humidity out now. Today, it's great. It's kind of lower mid 80s and should kind of be pretty normal over the next week. So 4 more weeks to go, right? And it still can be hot in September, but if we get to that first week in September, we're pretty good to go. A few 90s probably will still hit the map, but we're in good shape. We're still kind of waiting for hurricane season to get going.
Well, that was one question I wanted to ask you. Hurricane season, and I know that's sort of a misnomer to call it a season, because they can come pretty much any time of the year. You can't. What was the old commercial? You don't screw with Mother Nature or something like that. I mean, she's got her own mind. She's going to do whatever she wants to do. Hurricane season per se starts June 1st and goes through like November.
June 1st through November 30th technically is open and closed dates. But like you said, it can happen at any time, and it's just been active, really very active over the last, it seems like 20 years, more so than not. So we've seen some earlier storms, and it seems like every year the prediction is above average, just because the earth is warming, the oceans are warmer, whatever you want to attribute it to, but it's played out that way. And even this year, the forecast is for above average storms, averages 15 storms or something like that, 17. And so we're at 4 storms now as of early August, which is right on track. The 5th named storm typically rolls around mid or late August. So it seems like it's been really slow, almost dormant, but it's right on par for normal.
Well, and just with the named storms too, it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to do anything.
That's it, right? So named storms are one versus landfalling storms and that kind of thing. And then it's how many major hurricanes you get. And as we all know, it just takes one, just like it does for a snowstorm or any other storm. And but so far it's been pretty quiet, and we are looking ahead to what should be an active winter. We'll kind of get ahead of ourselves here for a minute, and that's because it's transitioning from La Nina the last 3 years to El Nino, which typically means a bit maybe colder and stormier for the eastern United States. So this should be technically an active winter.
So you could make me happy this winter.
Well,
if we get some snow,
as we
possibly, as we talk about it in August,
fingers crossed in August. But last year was as bad as it gets, right? Less than an inch, and I don't know what it amounted to maybe 0.2 inches.
Well, look at that. You didn't have to give away that Amazon gift card.
Yeah, there were no gift
measurable
cards.
snow.
It was really bad last year, and so we'll see. But we've got to get through a lot of time before then to ramp up this hurricane season. And the one story is the temperatures of the waters in the Atlantic have just been extremely high, the kind of record high temps of the water. And so that would lead you to believe that clearly the pool of water that is what fuels these storms is ready to go. It's it's warmer, and that means that the depth of the warmth is critical, and it's just a warmer set of water that's ready for action. And the thing that then squashes that, typically in an El Nino year, and we're still kind of ramping up, is the winds tend to be a little different in kind of the area where these storms form. So you have these two opposing factors, but the water is so warm that we will likely get a lot of named storms, whether they recurve out to sea and, like you said,
disappear, hit land. Well, I was reading where they said that the waters off at Key West hit like over 100 degrees in the ocean or something.
Yeah, and I don't know
nuts.
if it's truly unprecedented. It's, and exactly where are you measuring that, but it doesn't matter. A water temp of 100 plus is clearly
that's warm. It's warmer than my bathtub.
It's
I don't
warmer.
have a big hot water heater, but I know when the bathtub gets filled to the top, it's coming out cold water at that point. So it's probably warmer than my bathtub.
And we're just never close to that. I mean, what's the Atlantic in the summertime? And something in the 70s when you get into August.
I'm going to say mid 70s up this way, if that.
Right? So 25 plus degrees warmer of water. It just I would like to experience it, but yeah. So we'll see. The storms just have not cranked up, and there's other factors, how much dust is there or sand. There's the Saharan dust layer that, like as winds come off the coast of Africa, sometimes it picks up dust from the Sahara and that blows it. And you can even see that even here sometimes, but frequently in Florida, it's a factor of their kind of the sky, right? So like our sky has been blotted out with Canadian smoke. The same thing typically in Florida and southeastern U.S. Sometimes it comes here where you're like, oh, it's a bit hazy today. Oh, that's from the Saharan layer of dust. And it's all very active, but it's been really quiet in terms of overall tropical activity. But again, early August, too early to tell.
Which is probably pretty good for the people that live in Florida that like to hear that. I mean,
I don't think anyone's complaining. There was just a report yesterday, day before, Allstate announced its earnings, and their catastrophe losses more than doubled or about doubled from year over year. So what they reported was, from whatever level it was in 21 and 22 or whatever the time frame was. And the point is, it's just things are just costing more. Now, as there are more people with more housing in place, and we're in areas that used to be rural, and, like things are just getting knocked around. But yes, these storms are just mounting up in terms of losses. And I don't think that trend goes away. Again, more people, population grows, you have more physical things in terms of property. And
there was an interesting article I was reading in the Wall Street Journal. Was talking about hurricane insurance down in Florida, and they're saying this is becoming unaffordable. You've got a lot of people that retire down there under a fixed income, and now all of a sudden what used to cost $6,000, and again, it depends on where you are in Florida, now going up to $16,000 a year.
Yeah, I mean,
and
that's at a certain point, it's undoable. It's just, how can you afford it? And so people will go without insurance and take their chances, and that doesn't work out too well if and when something occurs. And then some insurance companies are just not offering insurance.
Right, they're pulling out.
In certain states overall, in certain states for certain things. And I think at a certain point, like, what are the options, that the risk will ultimately increase greatly for the individual, because if it's not offered, how will you cover yourself? Or if it is offered, how will you afford it? Right. And this is I guess this goes for a lot of things, housing and education,
it's the catch-22. Sure.
It's the catch-22, but with insurance. And then, okay, so you take your chances, and then a storm hits and you're whatever, if even if it's just your house on the street, it gets wiped out, and then you're in a really bad spot. So these are not whether they're unprecedented or whatever, they're just different times, evolving times. Like every kind of period is, and it will be interesting to see how things go. Even here, right? How will things progress across the next 10, 20, 50 years in Annapolis as sea level rise continues to occur. Sunny day flooding is more frequent downtown Annapolis. It's evolve or die in all things. And so we have to make the adjustments. So I believe the city of Annapolis is taking steps to mitigate flooding downtown, and what they are specifically and how they'll work, we'll see over the coming years. But there's no doubt Annapolis is one of the top cities in the country in which sunny day flooding is increasing dramatically. So
it's funny that you mentioned that, because I just learned today that, and I'm going to screw up the initials, but Annapolis just had a FEMA rating of 7, which is I guess the chance of getting significantly flooded or whatever.
Wow.
And it was reduced. So that basically is going to save 15% on anybody that is required by FEMA to have flood insurance or by a mortgage company to have flood insurance. Specifically because the city is taking steps to raise city dock and to do some mitigation for sea level rise, which is really pretty cool. So if you're paying for flood insurance, next year you can probably save 15% on it, which can be sizable. They said the average in the city was something like almost $800 for those that have it, and that drops it down to $6 something.
It's a big deal, and we've been pretty fortunate this year. It's been, I think you and I have texted a few times, like most boring weather year ever. And on a certain level, that's perfectly fine, right? The losses are down, and the flooding's less, and whatever, right? And I guess just last Saturday we had what I thought were kind of the strongest line of storms that went through the region, and wind gusts finally were 70 something miles per hour in spots, and even 80 plus were recorded in DC or Maryland. And it did some damage, and some people were without power, and we just haven't had much this whole year, again dating back to last winter when nothing really occurred. It's just been,
well, on the good side with last winter, I mean, nobody died of a heart attack shoveling snow.
No heart attacks. There were no days off of school. There were, it was that, right? And so, it's okay. If it were like that, I guess it's kind of like, it's almost like we live in San Diego at this point. It's just been boring
True.
Weather and a tolerable summer.
Well, George, you mentioned La Nina and El Nino.
Yeah.
How often do they, what is that cycle?
It varies. I mean, I guess you have kind of 3 phases. It's either it's in El Nino, which is warmer waters, Eastern Pacific, and then La Nina is the waters are warmer in the Western Pacific, cooler in the East. And then maybe sometimes it's in that transition phase. But yeah, it seems like every few years, right? You're going back and forth, and in general is the easy way to think about it. And so, yeah, again, La Nina has been the last 3 years. It doesn't mean you can't get a big snowstorm in a La Nina and have an off year in an El Nino, but the overall
it's a pattern.
The patterns kind of show certain results, and yeah, it's been a while here. So the chances are improved for us. And we had a pretty good snowstorm a couple of years ago, but it's not the one that we're after. We haven't had that, right, major storm warning and a blizzard warning again since 2016 was the last one. So it's a long time. It's and when you and I did the winter forecast last year, all things pointed to La Nina, no snow. And ultimately I said, I'm going to go with a lot of snow because of a numerology kind of thing. If you remember, it was like every 6 or 7 years. And clearly it didn't play out. So numerology doesn't work when it comes to...
you don't mess with Mother Nature. She's going to do whatever she wants.
But look, in that recording, yes, Mother Nature for sure does. In that recording, if you remember, I referenced earlier 2022? There was a volcanic eruption, the Hunga Tonga, whatever it was, right? And I referenced that. And of course, no one probably really listens to that stuff and hears about it. But it is still proving to be a factor and a contributing factor. A lot of people think to, maybe that's what sort of helped keep the winter to a minimal thing, but it had so much water vapor that it put into the Earth's atmosphere that it's now being pointed to as a potential reason why the Earth's temperature is higher this year than ever, because the water vapor is just it's a factor for technical reasons. And so that event now almost 2 years ago, and look, it was a major eruption. Volcanic eruptions typically put ash into the air. This one put water vapor because it was an underwater explosion that did not eject ash
Ashes
plumes. But either way, when they're major eruptions like that, they have a multi-year impact on the earth. And so it's another thing just to keep in mind that it could impact, even it's with it being El Nino, that the water vapor in the upper atmosphere could keep us a little too warm but again, we're talking about overall global kind of temperature averages. We just need it to be 31 degrees or 30, right there, just on the right side of the line, and get one storm. And again, we talk about it every year. Ever since we started doing the weather podcast together, it has not really snowed. So barely.
I don't know. Maybe there's your numerology. I don't know.
That's it, right? So if we take a day off without putting in intentionally, without putting in the wrong day's forecast, it's going to break the cycle.
Well, I'll tell you, for those that are just joining, we are talking with George Young with DCMDVA Weather, and he is the most accurate and the only locally forecast weather report you're going to find. DCMDVAweather.info is the website that you want to go to. And that's it's a real basic website as far as, and I say basic, I don't mean that in what you're giving, but
it is pretty straightforward.
It's straightforward. It's very simple. It's, you get the information that you need and it's right there. I
do a daily forecast. It's me putting it up. So it's a human. It's not auto-generated based on models. So here's the daily forecast, but it's also satellite radar, winds. It's all just weather information for you to kind of look at and hop in, hop out, and social media too. And one thing I have gotten away from, I will get back to it, and it's been kind of intentional, is that the app is still out there on the App Store, but the push notifications are not. I haven't been doing them for a while, and they're really, the account is kind of dormant. I'm switching app companies, and I've taken a lot of time to kind of just let it sit. But I'm also working on something with another company to try to present some different type of dashboard app style information. So this is a custom thing that hopefully I can present to the public here later this year or next. And it would be single sourcing, kind of what the app does, but it would just be pulling together a lot of weather information in a different form that I don't think anyone really presents, because otherwise you would have to pay a fair amount of money for this. So anyways, something good on the horizon, and ideally it would be this kind of dashboard of weather stuff along with a new app on a different platform. So working on it, hopefully by the end of this year. My goal is before the winter starts.
I feel your pain, because we did a redesign of Annapolis, and it was on my to-do list for a year and a half, maybe 2 years, and just, finally pulling the trigger. Okay, we're going to pull the trigger in the fall. And it's like, well, why don't we just wait till January? And then, and you finally do it. And it's, I get that, but that, folks, is a tease, because you want to look for some new exciting changes at DCMDVA Weather a little bit later on this year. So you think we're hoping, at least I am, anyhow, we're going to have a fairly active winter with a shift of,
I think certainly it can't be less active than last year. It should be.
I guess you're safe, right?
Should be. We're safe on that front. It should be fairly active. And again, as you stated before, like, what's the cycle? So this El Nino is expected to be kind of a moderate to strong one based on measurements of things and early indicators. It is transitioning into that phase. It should be pretty locked in terms of an overall kind of set of variables, a phase before the winter, but it could last 2 or 3 winters. So often it really is kind of like maybe a back-to-back is a strong pattern. This back-to-back-to-back kind of 3 in a row La Nina is not the norm. So we should expect this winter and the next winter to be kind of El Nino and active. So our window hopefully is coming around.
So my fingers are crossed anyhow. I know some people will curse me, but I mean, I've always said for years, I said, I like maybe 2 or 3 snows that shut the town down for a couple days.
Yeah,
are awesome.
They are.
But
conversational, good footage. It gets the hype going, and we talk about it every year. There's no topic close weather-wise that gets people just sideways on every level.
Oh, they do.
As a snowstorm, and what's the forecast, and when's it coming, and how much, down to the 10th of an inch is great. And that's why I do the
the contest,
snowfall prediction contest down to it really is for me like the essence of social media, because people kind of come together. It becomes this cool competitive thing, and it's just fun, right? And there's a gift card to be had every time with it, and we're having fun with it.
Well, a question for you. I mean, we are not out of hurricane season. We're not out of our summer weather. Yeah. And with hurricanes, and typically we don't get hurricanes up here in Anne Arundel County. We get the remnants of more powerful tropical storms or depressions, which are no less damaging. I mean, you look at, some of the storms that we've had here.
Yep.
Rainstorms can come. I mean, we saw the hellacious bit of wind a couple weeks ago. Yeah. We've had some serious downpours where the floods are just coming. What are some safety tips for for folks as we go through the remainder of the summer and the rest of hurricane season, if something were to come up the bay or come up here? I mean, how can people stay safe?
The upside of tropical systems, we typically have a ton of lead time. So we can see those things at a minimum 3 or 4 days in advance, if they form kind of close off the southeast coast. But usually it's 1 to 3 weeks of this agonizing lead time. And ultimately, you're like, when is this thing going to get here? But so in terms of preparation for that, just stay tuned to the weather and look, most places won't flood around here. If you're on the water, you probably have a game plan already. Double check your insurance, make sure your home and boat and everything's protected. Otherwise, we just kind of can see it coming and make the adjustment when we're within that 48-hour window. Day-to-day weather is you just have to kind of stay tuned, which is the whole point of website, app, podcast, right? It's just staying weather informed. And, the things you can have, I guess, in your car would be some kind of flares or a flashlight or a coat, winter coat in the winter in your car at all times, kind of in the trunk, but some kind of whatever roadside emergency kit that would keep you kind of in check if you were on the road.
And I think too the advice that all of the emergency authorities will say is, when you see standing water, turn around, don't drive through it, because can take you away pretty easily. I mean, you might make it through, you might not, and that's a risk nobody wants to take.
That's it, right? Turn around, don't drown, and that is easy to follow, but hard to do in practice, because you're like, there's no way. I've been down this road 50 times. I'll go, and it just takes that one thing. So,
just very recently up in New Hope, Pennsylvania, there was a situation where, again, it was near the Delaware River.
Yeah.
And it was a flash flood that came through, and they weren't even going through water. It came and it swept away like 5 or 6 cars, and 2 people, a father and a child.
Oh, wow.
They had left, I think they left the mother and another child off at a store or something like that. And they were going to park the car, and this flood came down and, took it away. So be very careful of that. And I would also think that, just, silly little things. I mean, we have to have our cell phones for any number of reasons.
Yeah.
We may need to be on Facebook, but we also may need to make phone calls or text messages to make sure that people are safe. Get one of those portable batteries and keep that charged up. I know, gosh, I've got one that I bought it. I can't remember where I bought it, but it's got crazy long power. I mean, it'll stay powered up and
for your cell phone, right? Yeah.
And my iPad or whatever it may be for a week or more.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not streaming Netflix on it or anything, but it's.
But those things will come in handy, and you'll use it even if you don't think so, way more than you normally would.
And again, I know when we lost the power a little bit during the last BG&E outage, there was a question as far as food in the refrigerator, and just from what I'm gathering from USDA, if you don't open your refrigerator, or out 4 hours on the refrigerator, 24 hours on the freezer side is what it can probably last. So. That's unfortunate. And I do understand that homeowners insurance will cover your food spoilers too. If you wanted to, lay a claim into it, I don't think it makes you get a higher rate or anything like that.
Yeah. Do you have to pay your deductible? $1,000 deductible to get 200 in groceries?
I don't know. Apparently you haven't been grocery shopping lately. I mean, might be worth $1,000 deductible to get.
It might be.
Depending on what it is.
Shopping light for sure.
Well, George, as always, thank you so much. Not so much for being here, but thank you for that too. But for the accurate information you give us every single morning. I say every single morning, but Monday through Friday.
Probably
48 weeks here. I mean, there's a couple holidays that we take off every now and then, but you do a valuable service to certainly us, to the listeners, to everybody in the area. And again, DCMDVAweather.info is the website. You're accurate, you're timely, and again, you're not a guy up in South Central Pennsylvania. You're here.
It helps, certainly, being from Maryland, but now living here, and I appreciate continuing to work with you. It's been awesome. We're right at that 6-year mark for doing this together, and hopefully
don't tell me that, man. Has it been that long?
Hopefully another 6 to 25 years to go. We'll just keep doing it as long as we can.
25 years, man. I hope to be long checked out by then. by
of
then,
the podcast game.
All righty, George. Well, you have a great afternoon. I know you've got to get up to get your kiddos on the way.
Yeah, orthodontics and gymnastics require constant attention. So
as well as constant funding.
Constant funding too. But I appreciate it. Great to catch up again, and looking forward to let's see what happens the rest of the year for tropical weather, and then right into the winter.
And we will get together a little bit sooner than this. We'll be back and talk about winter when it comes time.
Yeah, sometime in November.
This has been a bonus podcast from Ion Annapolis. Please visit us at ionannapolis.net. Follow us on Facebook at All Annapolis and on Twitter at Ion Annapolis. And if you haven't subscribed to the Daily News Brief podcast, go for it. And all of your local news will be delivered to your phone, tablet, or smart device by 6 a.m. every Monday through Friday.